Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Brentford won, Aston Villa won. How you doing, mate?
Yes, mate. I'm all right. I am all right. I've, the sun's shining. I'm having a good Saturday. It's the weekend. The Villa boys have, we remain unbeaten against, we've seen teams higher up the table go to the G-Tech Community Stadium and come out with a lot less than we did. So, all things considered, considering I didn't think we played very well, I think points all right. I feel quite upbeat. It always helps when 87th minute, whatever it is, when Dougie stabs home. Always helps, doesn't it?
Definitely, mate, it does. And that makes it 9 unbeaten now for Villa. Our run extending all the way back till just after we lost 4-2 to Arsenal at home. And boy, a lot has changed since then. And as we just sort of briefly said off air, mate, this is again under previous management. Just to add some more perspective and clarity to it, we probably lose. I didn't think the performance was brilliant, but it's important that in these kind of games, you remain competitive, you remain level-headed, and we managed to thankfully ride out that wave of pressure that Brentford put on us, mainly in the second half, really, mate. And we've come out of it. We're leaving the capital with, a share in the points, and it's hard to be frustrated when we've got such a quick turnaround time as well. Obviously with Fulham on Tuesday, mate, and then United away on the following Sunday. This is almost instantly forgotten about.
Yep, no, for sure, mate. It's all, all of this is, as you say, very quickly put behind us if we go and get a big win midweek. And obviously it puts a bit of added pressure on that game. But, as we get closer to the end of the season and we remain in this fight for varying degrees of European football, the games will have more and more weight put upon them. I didn't think we were great today. I think Brentford will probably feel a bit aggrieved they didn't come away with a win. I think it's one where I think every now and again you're going to have a game like this. And, both you and I said in the preview that we're not going to, win every game until the end of the season. That streak was never going to carry on for another 7 games or whatever it is. But it's making sure ultimately that we remain unbeaten, because so many of these games are against sides that are in and around us in the league. Nottingham Forest almost did us a big favour today, didn't they? In terms of, they took Liverpool right to it. That Liverpool eked past them 3-2. So that's an unexpected sort of, that almost was an unexpected drop of points there from Liverpool. But it's a really interesting sort of table at the moment. And Brighton obviously playing the FA Cup semi-final tomorrow at the time of recording. And, there's 3 games in hand are sort of looming over our shoulder, but it's just about making sure that we take care of business, mate. And I didn't think we were great today, but the obvious caveat to that is that I think both you and I have sat on this podcast after a few of the wins that we've had in this run and said, we weren't exactly blown away by the performance, but we've come out on the right side of the margins. The main sort of example that comes to mind there is Leicester away, for example, in a game like that, or Palace at home, when we really didn't set the world alight, but we came out on top ultimately because we stayed into the game, as you said, mate. And especially at Leicester and now Brentford have gotten goals late on. So we're showing that we compete from minute 1 to minute 90. I mean, we've praised this Villa side for scoring early goals, and now we're praising them for scoring late ones. Don't think it was the best performance today, but I've got confidence that we'll bounce back on Tuesday.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I think, it just kind of goes to show, really, when you look at the team and the substitutions that are made today, we're spread a bit thin at the moment, really, aren't we? Ash is obviously in because Cash still isn't back to 100% fitness, and he won't be for at least, the short term, as per Unai's pre-game presser. And, Ash is obviously culpable in the first goal. In my opinion, should be sort of looking over his right shoulder, making sure he's goal side of Tony there. especially when you've got 6 strung out across the back. It's a fantastic finish from Tony. But then even, the substitution of Emmy coming off with, I think, did you say it was suspected illness, mate?
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, I've seen varying reports. Apparently, like some people saying he was throwing up in the dressing room. Whatever it is, I think it's just an illness.
Blimey. Well, I mean, there's every cloud has a silver lining. At least he's not got a sort of physical injury, and hopefully that's something that he can overcome quickly. But listen, I'm not going to sit here and come on and like lambast Olsen, even though he did drop an absolute clanger with, I think it was it Janlet, who found himself through on goal, and the sort of the weak dive and save, and thankfully Janlet, that I can't even say his name, Janlet then misses the own goal. That's how just lost for words I am. But he's coming in cold. I'm not going to sit here and fucking take digs at our substitute keeper. We both kind of rolled our eyes at each other, didn't we, when we were like, buckle up. But I just, it's the same with everyone. We just got to back them all, like bringing players like Chambers on, Dean, obviously with the form that Moreno's been in, you wouldn't necessarily want to put Dean on unless you were just sort of maybe wasting time or wanting a shut-up shop. Which, to be fair, I think what probably was the idea of the subs when they were initially looking to get made. Obviously, they got delayed from the free kick and then from the goal, weren't they? And Moreno didn't have a fantastic performance. But, I look at that team, I look at the subs, and I'm even more impressed that we've sort of got away with it almost and sort of managed to sneak a point there, mate.
Yeah, for sure. I think a few players didn't have their best games. I thought, like I said, Dendoncker was pretty incredible when he first came back into the side, and that looked like a real masterstroke. And today, I thought he showed signs of that lack of match sharpness that is to be expected when he's not played as long as we did. But we've still managed to set records today, despite all of this, despite Ash not having the best game, as you said, mate. We've now scored in 19 consecutive Premier League games under a new manager. That's the first time in Premier League history that any side has done that, which is quite incredible. And I think there's still some positives to take. Ash didn't have the best game. I didn't think Leander did either. I thought, by and large, I thought Dougie was really good, and I thought he was good value for a goal at the end. I thought he had a good game. I thought Emmy had a good game as well. I thought Ollie didn't look as sharp as he did, and there was a couple examples it felt in the game where Emmy and Ollie weren't quite on the same wavelength. And Emmy's a very emotional player, isn't he? And he certainly showed his frustration with a few of them. But we sort of had players going down left, right, and centre. We had Dean came on, he went down for a bit. Tyrone went down at the end. It's a theme across the league right now that clubs are stretched so thin. I think it's what with contributing to Man United's drop in form at the moment, and obviously we go to Old Trafford in a week's time, and they're limping through into the end of the season, fighting on so many different fronts. And so it's a theme in the league right now, and this is where, honestly, I think consistency is the biggest thing, and I think you have to keep searching for positives, but I do believe they're there. I think at the moment we're going to see some crazy results from now until the end of the season, because players are exhausted. The injury lists are just racking up across the league, across so many different clubs. Clubs still competing in cup competitions, some in European competitions, even down as far as West Ham. And I think now, as you sort of really feel the effects of that, and the fatigue really starts to kick in, there's going to be some really interesting results between now and the end of the season. And if we can make sure that we just keep coming up with these moments at the end, winning games, drawing them when we don't play very well like today, I think we can still come out with European qualification of some sort. I think even if that comes down to the Conference League, and look, the game tomorrow in the semi-final and who wins the FA Cup has huge bearings on that. So, that was a big game for us, whatever happened there. But yeah, I do think that, look, this league is still going to be a lot of shaking between now and the end of May, mate. And I've still got a good feeling we can come out on the right side of that.
Yeah, no, I think, there's plenty of reasons to be positive, aren't there, mate? There are. You're totally right. And it's just, as you say, it's about sort of managing the games as they come now. And obviously, with the midweek game and all that kind of stuff, it's hardly ideal. But then, we sort of get back to just playing one game a week after this little period of 3 and 9. But it's, I don't know. I don't really like. I don't know. I don't actually know what to say.
I know how you feel, mate.
It's one of them games, isn't it? It's I think the frustrations with some people lie in the fact that obviously we've come into this game white hot, really, haven't we? 5 wins on the bounce, and again, I think now we're gonna probably enjoy watching Villa less from now until the end of the season, because we've said it so many times, mate, haven't we? There's absolutely no pressure on us getting European football. It's not happening. Let's just play with freedom and see what happens. But now we're in a situation where it is like a really strong chance that it could happen, and that's when all the pressure and all the expectations come on. And there's been some great discussion in the comment section. Somebody said, "I think every team will fear Villa," and I think to a degree, they're right, because as you don't go unbeaten in 8 and win 5 on the bounce and all this kind of stuff, and for teams to sort of disregard you, do you, mate? But we're now going into games against, so Fulham, who obviously are around us. We've then got United, Wolves, who obviously aren't sort of near us in the table, but with that being sort of, there being some form of rivalry, obviously it's not a derby, but there's a rivalry there. Spurs, Liverpool and Brighton. These are all massive games, and we're going to see what these players and what Unai is really made of in this period of time. And I can't lie, mate, I'm not looking forward to it. I've been so giddy and excited and optimistic, but I don't think this one's taken the wind out of my sails. I think that's probably a sort of an unfair comment, but I think it's more sort of swallowing the pill of reality, where it's like every minute of the 90 minutes for the next 7 games are going to go very slow, and with so much riding on it, and it's all out of our hands, mate, as well. We can sit here and we can talk about it as much as we want and talk about all the permutations and talk about how great we are and how great Unai is, but ultimately it's down to the 11 men and substitutes to sort of make that happen, and that is out of our control.
No, absolutely, mate. I mean, you only have to look at the sort of the bench today, as you sort of pointed out at the top of the show, mate, to know that we are stretched very, very thin. I mean, you look at Vinicius, Salo, we're still going with 2 goalkeepers on the bench. Sebastian Ravan and Travis Patterson make up the bench there, and then there's John Duran, who's still very young in there as well. And if you include Olsen, he had to come on today, but he's also a goalkeeper. You've only really got Luca Dean, Chambers and Traore, who are substitutes that are available to come on, because the other one is Diego Carlos, who is still coming back from injury, and realistically you don't want to have to throw in centre half. So I honestly think when you look at our bench, we have 3 ready-made substitutes that can actually come on and impact the game, and even still Callum Chambers is one of them. And so this is, it's going to be crazy, mate. It's going to be crazy, and home support is going to be absolutely massive, which makes Tuesday even more important in that regard. But no, I think there's every chance we'll come to the end of the season and be almost glad that we had this result in a way, because I think especially when we've got games coming up against sides who are difficult to go and play away at, namely Manchester United and teams, some of who are higher up in the table than us. A bit of a reality check might be good, to not get lost in that silly sense of optimism, because I think if you go to Old Trafford and play like you did today, chances are you might end up losing. I think to get it out of the way at a stadium like Brentford, who have been good at home, barring that Newcastle result, they have been, I think they're unbeaten in their last 5 prior to that game. But it's still an opposition where, they've been a little bit shaky in terms of confidence. We've capitalised on a late goal. Better to get that out of the way now than away at United, away at Anfield, at home to Spurs. Someone like that against top-class opposition who have over the years picked us off, and you end up losing. I think it might be a good thing.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. It's a sobering thought, but yeah, who's to know? I mean, I think especially when you look at like the sort of, as you said, the sort of the context to it, mate, that puts Brentford 7 points behind us in 10th. So, it's we just have to beat. I think if you take points off or beat Spurs, Liverpool, and Brighton, then get your passports ready. I think that's what it is, isn't it? We're probably going to lose at some point. I'd say Wolves actually. I think that could be a banana skip peel on the floor potentially. But it's going to be tough, mate. I mean, there's plenty to talk about in sort of off the field with the season ticket price hikes that happened as well, mate. 15% in some areas. I saw someone say on Twitter that with the North Stand increases, obviously because they increased quite drastically this season as well from last, that over a 2-year period, I think the North Stand season tickets have increased by 45%, which is quite frankly absolutely despicable when you look at the facilities in that stand.
I was going to say,
absolutely,
it's the worst place to sit at Villa Park, isn't it? I mean, the fact that they're knocking it down in a few years, you'd think that wouldn't be the case.
It's crazy the fact that they're looking at rivaling the Holte prices. It's absolutely mad, and they're sort of categorizing them as wings now and all this kind of stuff. And listen, I know we're all about people will say the owners have put money in and they've spent 400 million and they've done this and they've done that, but it's almost like the sort of the way Christian Perslow had phrased it is almost as if we should have been, he was inferring we should have been grateful for this. I mean, we're living in very tough times, cost of living crisis and all that kind of stuff. You guys don't need me to tell you about all that, but I just thought, especially what really I thought was quite sly was when they mentioned the safe standing that they're installing in the upper Holte and in the upper north, and they were like, which obviously comes at a cost, and we don't make any money from it. It's almost like, yeah, you should be grateful that we're doing this. Does the price hike not warrant that? Do you know what I mean? Like, I just thought it was all quite sinister, really. And listen, I fully understand football is a business, this and that. We're talking about an extra 3 to 5 million in revenue per year with this, with these increases, which may seem like a lot, but in football it's not. It really isn't. You can make that up elsewhere, and it's just little things like that. And it got me thinking. No, I mean, this may seem like a completely separate thought, but I trust you, it's not. People like Cam Archer, Aaron Ramsey, are they even going to be about? Like, because if we're looking at getting an extra 5 million quid off us supporters, how easy is it to sell Cam Archer to Middlesbrough for 20 million? Do you know what I mean? Like, if they're the kind of decisions that are being made, then it wouldn't surprise me if a Cam is sold or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, no, totally, mate, totally. Look, like, we haven't spent so much on Bodymore so that they all come through and have long and storied careers with the first team. It's obviously about, when they do leave, ensuring that they're of a good standard and that the academy is reputable. I mean, we all talk about Chelsea, like the player comes through at Chelsea and it's automatically another 5 million put on their transfer fee, and so I think that's the other side of it, is that eventually it can pay for itself in terms of players leaving the club as well. If you're going to announce a hike in ticket fees, then do it at the midway through a game unbeaten run or whatever it is. You know what I mean? They've picked a good way to do it. But ultimately, this is, I've sat on this podcast before and spoken about ticket prices and everything like that, and anyone who's been making points this season will know sort of my feelings on the matter and everything like that. But this is something that's happening across the board. I saw Fulham announce something very similar the other day, and this is the world in which we live. And we stand on the terraces, and now we've got that godforsaken chant. But we sing Christian Perslow's name from the whole team. Made our bed there. Yeah, we have, mate. That's the thing, and I just think that he's a divisive figure, and what he actions on a human level and a football level are probably do different things, and you can view them very objectively. But no, mate, unfortunately, I think you're at a point where you got to say you probably can't read too much into it, because it seems to be a consistent theme across the Premier League, and whilst that doesn't necessarily make it right, unfortunately, it seems like something that football fans across the country are being forced to live with.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, at least we're not paying £3,000 like Fulham fans for their season ticket. That's just despicable, isn't it? But yeah, sour notes on the podcast on. But guys, let us know your thoughts on the game in the comment section down below. If you didn't know already, you must be living under a rock. We're on TikTok and Instagram. On Instagram, it's at VillaPod, and on TikTok, it's at Heart of the Holte. Make sure you get that. Dan made a link tree, so all the relevant links, including FPL and all that kind of stuff, will be in the description. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure you follow, leave a review, do all that kind of stuff. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Up the Villa.